America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive. As far as the new money is concerned, incidentally, I have made it clear to the leaders that if this is not enough, if more can be used, if Dr. Jaffe, after studying this problem, finds that we can use more, more will be provided.
And, of course, it's Richard Nixon officially launching the U.S. war on drugs in 1971. I'm here with Radley Balko. We're talking about his new book, Rise of the Warrior Cop, the Militarization of America's Police Forces. What role does the war of drugs have on this trend that you identify?
It's been fueling it. I mean, without the war on drugs, I don't think we would have the proliferation of SWAT teams and the general militarization that we do.
A lot of these SWAT teams are going after drugs. It's drug raids largely they're doing. What I think one of the things I found so fascinating in your book is just the amount of money that is being spent on vehicles and armor and all these kind of toys, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
It reminds me of a consistent theme in American politics, which is that once you label something security, it's no longer counts as spending. Yeah. Like we don't want to, we have to tighten our belts. But if something's security, I love this portion of your book. This is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That's Sheriff Leon Lott of Richland County, South Carolina, quoting Matthew 5:9 in a press release announcing his acquisition of a track-propelled armored personnel carrier with a belt-fed rotating machine gun turret capable of firing 50 caliber rounds of ammunition. Yeah. There are police departments across the country in really small localities that have massive firepower. Where does the money come from?
Well, there are several different sources. For about 25 years now, the Pentagon has been giving surplus military equipment over to these police departments across the country. Wow. Literally millions of pieces of equipment have been transferred this way, and we're talking, tanks, helicopters, armored personnel carriers. My favorite, bayonets, for some reason. Police departments seem to love the bayonets. So you've got that. Then you've got the federal anti-drug grants, and these are grants that the federal government gives to these police departments solely for drug policing. So if your SWAT team goes out and arrests a suspected murderer, there's no federal money attached to that.
Oh, wow.
They go out and arrest a suspected pot dealer, you get a lot of money coming from the federal government for that.
So you're creating an incentive system to do these raids because the raids create the possibility of acquiring the money to buy the equipment.
Your SWAT team can then become a revenue enhancer rather than an expensive sort of toy that you have on the side. And then since September 11th, now we have DHS writing grants to police departments across the country to buy yet more equipment in the name of fighting the war on terror. And, they're going to places like Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
So one of the things we saw during the aftermath of the Boston bombing was this total lockdown in Boston. And we saw, I think we have a little bit of video of what that looked like in terms of the amount of firepower that was brought to bear. I mean, we just saw huge police, military, quasi-military vehicles rolling through the streets, people in tactical gear. And my thinking at the time was, well, I'm glad they have all this stuff because this is terrifying. And there's these terrorists who are on the loose who have pulled off this bombing. And when you look at that, I mean, that is the justification for this. What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, how did they find Tsarnaev? A guy went out, saw something suspicious in his backyard, called the police. They responded with a SWAT team. I mean, it was not the sort of saturation patrols were not what actually found him. And again, I'm not opposed to SWAT teams. Bringing a SWAT team out to apprehend him in that situation is perfectly legitimate.
It's the routine use and the kind of growth of their use. Radley Balko, author of The Rise of the Warrior Cop, the Militarization of America's Police Forces. Thanks. It's an incredible read.